Hello, welcome again to Conversations on JewishSacredAging.com. This is your host, Richard Address, and we're welcoming back Rabbi Sue Levi Elwell, spiritual director, a rabbinic coach and consultant and author, co-author with Rabbi Nancy Fuchs Kramer of this wonderful book, Chapters of the Heart, Jewish Women Sharing the Torah of Our Lives. Welcome again, Sue, to JewishSacredAging.com and our conversations. Chapters of the Heart, a very, very beautiful collection of essays by a variety of women dealing with, if I could be so bold, various theological challenges and responses to life situations. And what I wanted to talk to you about in this conversation is this whole process of spiritual direction that seems to emerge on a subtle basis, I think, out of a lot of these essays. And you're a spiritual director. So I guess the easiest first question is, what is a spiritual director?
So spiritual direction is an opportunity for two individuals to engage in soulful conversation and for the director to accompany the directee on his or her journey. And this is something that's actually quite ancient, both in Christian tradition and in Jewish tradition, and has been kind of reclaimed fairly recently by contemporary Jews, many of whom actually came to it through the Christian contemplative practice. They saw that Christians were using this opportunity to speak about our spiritual journeys in language that is comfortable for both individuals. And we've learned now how to bring this into our Jewish practice to help folks realize they're not alone, that we are not alone as we make our way through the world, that we have an amazing storehouse of Jewish practices and words and silences to take us through our lives with an intentional connection with Judaism.
Who comes to a spiritual director? You talk about these spiritual journeys and challenges. Does somebody just wake up one day and said, my God, I'm spiritually lost. I really need to find who I am and on this path? You've been doing this. What are some of the motivations that people will come and seek your guidance?
This is not therapy, and this is not counseling. What this is, someone would wake up and say, I think I can get more out of my life, or I'm having a really hard time, and this is not just what I need a therapist for. It might be what someone has thought, I'd kind of like a rabbi or a guide, although not all spiritual directors are rabbis. You don't have to be trained as a rabbi. But someone who will not be uncomfortable talking about God, talking about spiritual language, talking about deep doubts and questions about kind of the nature of the human condition. Who could I talk to who would take me seriously and would not judge me and would hear me and maybe just be there as a quiet, kind, supportive presence? And that's what we're trained to do.
So why not go to their rabbi? I mean, obviously you must have had this question a million times. Why not just make an appointment with their rabbi and say, I'm having these issues, I'm really sort of like lost. I don't believe in the God of the prayer book, but I have this, I need something in my life. Let's have a conversation. Why?
Many rabbis are very well equipped to have that conversation and can guide folks along. Most rabbis are in a position where they can't see someone over a long period of time. They can have 2, maybe 3 meetings with someone, but then it's time for that individual to find some ongoing support. A spiritual direction relationship usually begins with 2 or 3 meetings to see if the director and the directee are compatible. And then together, the two folks decide whether we're going to go forward. The meetings are once a month for an hour each.
Oh, once a month.
Yes. So it's an intensive relationship, but when they are together, it's most intensive. And in between, the person goes on about their lives, but hopefully with a somewhat different perspective because of this grounding relationship of mutual respect and really honoring the person where he or she is.
So do I come to you, we have this initial conversation, we agree to meet. Do I get homework?
In a way, you do get some homework. It's not written homework. It's usually homework about paying more attention to the way we are in the world. But it takes a while for me to get to know you and what your really deep questions are, and having a sense of, how you are in the world. And for each directee, the relationship evolves organically so that I am hearing you into speech.
So you mentioned before that this is a practice that really has its roots in tradition and that there are rituals. So walk me through one or two rituals that you would be involved with a person who's coming to you as a spiritual director.
I think the first thing to do, for some people, and I want to discuss this with the person, some people feel very grounded if a candle is kindled in the space where we're meeting. Mm-hmm. We always are going to meet. We're not going to meet in a restaurant. We're not going to meet at Starbucks. We're going to meet in a quiet place, in my office, in a space that is going to provide safety and other distractions are not present. We may begin with a couple of minutes of silence, depending on what's comfortable for the individual. Mm-hmm. If he or she has never experienced going into silence, we may need to frame it. Depending on the individual, song may be a part of helping that individual enter into a place of greater clarity and quiet. We live in a very, very noisy world, and quieting down our world is a challenge for all of us. But when we quiet down those voices, amazing things can happen because our true voice can come through.
You mentioned that there's a training involved. So to become a spiritual director in the contemporary Jewish community, what's involved? What do you have to go through?
There are, as far as I know, 3 programs that are run for Jews. One is through Aleph. Aleph is an organization through the Jewish Renewal Movement.
In Philadelphia, right?
Yes, but it's national.
Okay.
The program that I studied with is called Lev Shomea. And it is, they have trained a number of folks. It involved 4 week-long retreats over the course of a year and a half.
Okay.
And these were very intense retreats with also study in between. Everyone in the group had a chavruta, a study partner, with whom we met every week on the telephone or by Skype. We did a great deal of reading on spiritual direction, on spiritual companionship, both in the Jewish tradition and beyond. And we also had to write some papers to complete our training. There is no formal certification.
What's the third?
The third is run by Linda Thal and Ruth Sohn, and
these are national programs?
Yes, these are national programs.
Is there now an evolving national organization which you can, or is it still in?
No, there is something called Spiritual Direction International. Okay. And that is both Jewish and beyond. Multi-denominational, and many Jews are involved in it. Mm-hmm. They actually just had a very large convention that took place in the Southwest, and actually Zalman Schachter Shalomi was one of the primary speakers and teachers. He wasn't there in person, but he was on the big screen, and people felt very lifted up. One of my friends, who is a minister and is a spiritual director, shared with a group that I'm a part of spiritual directors, how really enlightening Reb Zalman's talk had been. So there is a great deal of fluidity between Jews and non-Jews who do this work. There are many Jews who choose non-Jewish directors because they haven't had access to Jewish directors. I am personally very open to working with directees who are not Jewish. And because I'm a rabbi, I'm particularly interested in working with Jews.
So I have to ask you this question before we wrap this segment up. Do you sense this desire, this spiritual hunger that's growing? Because, in the work we do on JewishSacredAging.com and all the work involved with baby boomers, I am picking up as I go around the country and consult with people that something seems to be happening. Perhaps it's a hunger, perhaps it's a sense of a realization of one's own mortality and of a saying, this is it, or to, channel the old Peggy Lee song, is this all there is? Are you sensing that people are just looking for just something else, that there's a void in their lives?
I think people always, in the second half or whatever it is, the turning point in our lives, the last third, of course we don't know what the last third is, but for those of us who are privileged to live 50 years or so, that we begin to ask new questions about our lives. And so this is particularly a path for more mature people. Most spiritual directors are people beyond 40, folks who choose to be those who accompany. I think we have more patience with ourselves at this age, and we are indeed asking deeper questions. So many people later in life will turn towards spiritual direction as a way to think about and speak about and measure their days. The psalmist teaches us, limnot yamenu, count our days. Let's measure our days. What is the weight of each day? What is the possibility of each day? And we ask this in a different way as we mature.
Thank you. Again, Rabbi Sue Levi Elwell, spiritual director, rabbinic coach and counselor, and co-author of this wonderful new book, Chapters of the Heart, which we discussed in a previous conversation, co-authored with Rabbi Nancy Fuchs Kramer. Thank you, Sue, for joining us on JewishSacredAging.com, our Conversations program. We wish you the best of luck and continued good luck with the spiritual direction. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on JewishSacredAging.com, our Conversations, and we'll be back with more in a little while. Thank you very much.